Okay, so we're live. I'm Hanniz. I'm from Best Events Productions, and this is my third tete-a-tete, which basically means hate to hate in French, but of course it obviously means like a one-to-one conversation. So I'm trying to make it as casual as possible, talking about business, talking about everyday things. So my guests are experts in their fields usually, and today we're going to talk about branding and marketing through the COVID-19 crisis. Okay, so I would like to introduce you to Julia. So Julia is from 360 brand 360, and she's been working in this line for more than 15 years. She's an executive director of a consulting firm, and basically they work on branding and marketing matters for multinationals and innovative Malaysian companies such as Berry Cabot AG, Trans Cosmos Malaysia, London Speaker Bureau, Rockwool Asia, Wonder Coffee, and Asia Malaysia. So Julia, say hi.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me, Hanniz. Really happy to be here. Somewhat similar to the previous world that we used to live in.
Yeah. And next we have Roberto Cumaraswamy. He's a marketing consultant. He's also a TEDx speaker, trainer, interviewer with over 22 years of experience at the senior management level across a range of industries and companies. So he helps businesses and subject matter experts grow through better branding, digital marketing, and brand storytelling. So his clients include Cellcom, XL Asiata, L'Oreal, and British American Tobacco, among many others. So Roberto, say hello.
Hello, hi Julia, hi Hanniz. Hello everyone out there.
If you're out there and if you'd like to leave comments, you're more than welcome to leave comments. If somehow we don't see your comments, we'll come back and revert to them later. Okay, so I'll go straight to the topic of the day. So in times of crisis, you know that marketers, whether they're from small businesses or large MNCs, they find themselves in a situation where they need to tread on glass sort of kind of feel, because people are more in a protective mode. They're focusing on themselves, their health, their families, and if you're running a company with lots of staff, you'll be worrying about overheads and paying the staff, even though there's no revenue coming in perhaps. You'll also be worrying about your customers and your community. So when it comes to branding, it's a very tricky time. And now I'm going to ask you questions on how to overcome these challenges that you may be facing. So, in the nuisance of brand voice being as delicate as ever, brands that use this time to be commercially exploitative will not do very well in the eyes of the public. So, what are your thoughts, Julia?
Thanks for your very long question, Hanniz.
Yeah, I can't remember what the first part was, but okay.
I caught the last three, but and then there was two, huh? Okay.
You want me to repeat the question?
So we are in the last month. It's been. Well, okay. I got the gist of it, I believe.
Okay,
so I'm just gonna wear off.
Basically, you just cannot be like pushing your brand forward so much.
Yeah.
So how do you tread softly, without sounding salesy and pushy?
So in the past, how brand and marketing used to work, we alternate between brand promotional messages and conversations, and then we have the product and the seasonal and the hard pushing and the hard selling messages that we send out. But for the last month or so, the whole world is going through this complete change. Nobody has ever experienced anything like this. It's an unprecedented time that we're in. So there's no history to learn from. There's nothing that we can reference, nothing of this magnitude and scale, right? And then fortunately or unfortunately, it's a global problem.
Yes.
So right? Every country in the world is facing it. You have the largest oil price decline. You have global economic contraction. Basically, everybody is in the shits, right?
Yeah.
Unemployment is really high, and that also means that that almost every business that you see out there is facing the same issues that you would be, right? So in this sort of situation, being self-centered and being really pushy is really the last thing that brands should do. Right? Because it's not about me anymore. It's about, oh my God, what's happening in the world, and really helping. So people are selfish by nature.
Yeah.
Right? So as individuals, we always relate to what's in it for me. You know, how can you benefit me? So and it's only natural. So as a business, you have to think about what's in it for my customers.
Yeah.
Right? How can I help them? And then as a brand, you communicate your value and your benefits with the right tone and manner that fits your company, right? So what do customers look for now? What are people most concerned with? They're concerned with first and foremost food, right? Can I feed myself? Can I feed my family? They're concerned with connectivity, not
Yeah.
just internet connection, but also people connection because you're stuck at home,
Yeah.
right?
People to
For us,
people.
that's a must. Yeah, people to people connection. That's why I'm also very happy to be seeing virtual faces right now.
Yeah.
And then and then after that, what are they looking for? They are concerned with things like productivity, right? Because being stuck at home is not easy. They are they're concerned with things like health and well-being, entertainment, learning and self-improvement, right? And then home maintenance to a certain extent, because some people start cleaning up the house and everything, right? It's coming out.
Yeah.
So knowing that these are the things that are front and foremost on everybody's minds, brands should really consider how they fit into these needs, what value they can provide, and then to do your marketing that's around these values. So it's not so much about, hey, look at the stuff that I have, right? It's about, oh, you're stuck at home, right? Why don't you take the chance to learn and develop yourself? Why don't you take the chance to do some home fixing? Oh, we have some tools here for you. That's all. I can cite two case studies that I've seen. One is Uniqlo, and as you know, Uniqlo being a global brand, but they are a very retail-based company, right? And they have numerous outlets over in Malaysia. So if the malls are not open now, and we're not quite sure when the malls will open in the future, right? It's a little bit difficult for them to shift into pivot, but change we must. Right.
Yes.
So if you look through their social media, you'll see that they provide a lot of useful tips and guides on how people can navigate their remote working and their stay-at-home situations, and then fit it back to their product. So one of the things, one of the posts that I saw, which really related to me, was that they mentioned, Uniqlo mentioned how being at home and in the sort of weather can be really, really stifling, right? And then so they gave tips on how you can stay cool in the warm weather, and then also mentioned the aerism technology, right, which helps, which is tech material that's used to keep cool, right? So it relates back to the brand, but it also relates to the customer. Right? And then they tell you suggestions on how to work at home productively and things like that.
So a bit of a community message and being a friend there, being there and just saying that, when this is over, we'll be still here for you kind of thing, right?
Correct. And then not so much about, I mean, there will be some parts about sales and whatnot, but that really shouldn't be first and forefront, the main message really should be how you are here to support your customers, right? What value that you bring to them, and how you can help.
Okay. All right, which brings me to my next question. So, beyond being creative, as the mix of actual media platforms used by consumers is going to change really quickly. Obviously, now out of home, advertising boards might not work as well as Facebook or Instagram or even TikTok. So, what are your thoughts, Roberto? How do you recommend marketers modify their media mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it all right. So obviously it depends on the kind of company you are and how you're using advertising before. So, all of those factors need to be taken into account. But let's say all things being equal and the changes before MCO and now during MCO, I mean, the obvious thing is people are not going out, right? Or they're certainly not going a fraction of what they used to, right? So, any outdoor media, anything which relies on them to be somewhere else apart from their home or online is obviously not going to work as well. So you already see a lot of brands who are adjusting their budgets to reduce things out of home and all those things. And the obvious shift is online. So it really is, the media mix has always been, it's always about being where your audience is and being where your consumers are, your prospects are. So there is definitely a shift, a massive shift to online. So even businesses that could get by without doing anything online before now have, certainly they want to get visibility, even if it's just for their sales teams or whatever to generate leads. So, it's adjusting it to the realities that we're facing right now. But having said that, again, depending on the nature of your business, depending on your cash flow, depending on your, whether you're an SME, which maybe is more kind of business oriented and doesn't have this big brand versus a multinational that obviously has to worry much more about perception, about brand perception. I also think that certain brands could also tone down their advertising. I don't think it's automatically wrong to be reducing your communications during this period. You definitely need to adjust the messaging because you need to take into account what everybody is going through. And, this is a case where everybody is going through roughly the same broad issues.
Global,
right?
and you can't escape one market to go to another.
So to not take that into account and to not reference that in your marketing is a bit weird, right? Because it's like, where is this company living? Like up in cloud nine.
Why are you so cold? Why are you so uncaring?
Correct. And so, having that a little bit of that empathy has to be there. I don't think you need to go overboard. I don't think, everybody has to start doing community messages and blah, blah, blah. No, you need to suit it to your brand and your company. But if, given that none of us really know how long this is going to go on for, and it could be over in 2 weeks, in a month, etc. If you're the kind of business that can survive without, the need to have all that communication and so on, I think you can also reserve your budget to then come back in a strong way afterwards, especially if your sales are very, if it's very hard for you, for example, to move your sales online. If you are not able to fulfill it for whatever reasons, etc., you need to also make those calculated decisions. But of course, for the big multinational brands that spend millions of dollars on advertising, yes, they will pivot to where their consumers are seeing them right now.
Yeah, it depends on the industry you're in, I suppose.
Correct. Yeah.
So obviously, like even the airlines, they wouldn't be promoting. I don't know. Airlines actually could be promoting their future pre-buy tickets or something, right?
Personally, I think airlines that do that are sending the wrong message because you're asking people to buy stuff without knowing when they're going to go. And, for example, AirAsia has always been accused of, oh, yeah, you do all these promos and then I fly in 3 months' time and then I change my date, but I cannot change.
Yeah.
And all the drama now about not giving the refunds or at least, not encouraging refunds and stuff like that. So no, I think something like airlines and any travel related business now for later, they can do that for their own sake. And maybe that's what they need to do. I get that, but I don't know how well that messaging translates. to empathizing with what people are going through. But then again, if they do that in a very targeted way, which they can do with online advertising, so we're not talking mass advertising, but really reaching their existing customers who they know have the financial means to ride this out very easily, who maybe are looking for good deals now for 6 months down the road to book that trip to the Bahamas, by all means.
Yeah, business class customers.
Correct. So it really does depend, but you certainly wouldn't go out with mass advertising to everyone saying, hey, book your $10,000
holiday now, right? And I think everybody's really tired of going on holiday.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. All right, then I'll go to my next question. So people will remember brands for the acts of good in times of crisis, particularly if done genuinely and with generosity. So we see luxury brands repurposing their factories to create products for the frontliners. We're seeing airlines like Etihad, they're actually providing 15,000 packs of food by repurposing their kitchen. So, even like something like that, their branding is so strong that it sticks with you because they're doing something genuinely good. What have you seen so far that has made your list of marketing to-dos and don'ts? Julia, shall you start?
It's such a heartwarming story, isn't it? You hear of all these big brands, and then they're turning their factories or production facilities. They're doing something for the good of the people, right? It's a really smart business move if you think about it, because actually they probably don't even have the raw ingredients to the products yet, right? So rather than sitting idle, they're doing something that's good business sense for them, but also very tasteful PR. So it's done very well. The brand goodwill and the reputation that you reap will benefit you greatly in the long run, because the stories like this that travels a lot more, right? It's part of the message and the value that we spoke about earlier. So if you turn it around and consider, if Air Asia had done something like that, right, and had a more heartwarming message, and then by the way, if you want to help us out, you can buy right? Rather than everyone saying, I can't even get refunds now.
Yeah, asking for
all about the marketing.
Yeah. Okay, and what about you, Roberto?
Sorry, Julia?
No, I was going to say that usually acts like this, they have a very big local impact.
Right.
Because you tend to benefit the people around you, or you tend to benefit either your community or your industry. Right? I personally benefited from some of the things that businesses have done as well. I'll give you an example. I have kids. They're stuck at home for a month. What was that? No, I was saying my kids are stuck at home. Right. And it's been a month.
Yes.
It's been for a month. They're going stir crazy and they're making me go crazy. But you'll see a lot of children portals, education portals like Scholastic, like Audible. They've opened up their paywalls and they've given the services for free for a limited time. So it's free books that you can read, free projects that you can do, things that can keep the kids entertained, right? And these sort of things. If I were not a Scholastic fan or target audience before, that brand has now entered into my consideration set. Right? So it's a really roundabout way, but a very effective way of getting people to try the products. For brand and marketing, HubSpot, we use HubSpot, right? And HubSpot has also even opened up their services, limited services, right, for free for a limited amount of time. But it's a good way of getting first trials from businesses and SMEs, because then they get to say, I get to get my processes done faster, simplified, or I can use these portals to learn and grow for myself. So HubSpot has starter packages that's meant for SMEs to try out for this time. Small shameless plug, we also did our own playbook We have a playbook, but with during this MCO, we sent it out for free.
Mm-hmm.
So it's available for download until end of the month. That's all we usually charge for it.
Okay.
And we've not sent out the word, but we've also done free strategy consults for NGOs and things like that. Because this is the time when a lot of them, they have inquired or previously inquired, but we recognize that it's a tough time for a lot of people. So we've started out something small, just in our own little way of benefiting the community.
Like the zoo did a very good job in raising funds for themselves in a month. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So you'll see that when you have small acts of benefit, and there are a lot of people who do pay it forward projects and programs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's well as well. So you can see the community, has banded together really strongly. We even have a hashtag for it, the Jaga Kita, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, and Roberto, do you have something to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Julia said was absolutely relevant. And I think it amounts to 3 levels that companies can show what it is, how they care, right? And it's the first is obviously how they treat their customers.
Yeah.
The second is how they treat the community or society at large, and the third is how they treat their employees. Mm-hmm. So I think there are different stories going around, because obviously one of the key themes right now is about people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
Companies retrenching staff, etc. So there are companies out there who are being very being very cold about it and being very ruthless about it. And it's easy for us though to blame them and to say, how could you do that? But then again, if what's at stake is the survival of the company, you've got no choice. So, I sometimes see all the backlash that some of these companies get. How could you let your staff go, etc.? But what are they supposed to do in a lot of cases, right? So it's either the survival of the company, or let's treat all our staff nice for a month or two and then we're out of business.
Correct.
Which is so. I mean, but I just wanted to talk about those 3 levels. But back to your original question of, will companies be remembered for doing these things? I take a little bit more of a cynical view. I think it depends on the kind of company you are and what you're doing. Because I think when it comes to the larger companies, like luxury companies converting their factories or I think that's now just par for course. I mean, it's expected, right? If you're a large company and you've obviously got government stakeholders, you're involved, you got to figure out what you're going to do. And I personally don't think many customers are going to remember this in a month's time or whenever we get over this. They're not going to remember Vuitton made masks. I doubt it, right?
They didn't know. It's a fake story, by the way.
Sorry? What?
It's a fake story, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. But, the companies that are repurposing or doing these things, I don't think that kind of stuff will be remembered. I think the ones that will be remembered are companies that really had to struggle to do something. Because it's hard to feel bad for a lot of these big companies, I find, unless I just think it's very hard to do that. But when it comes to the smaller companies, initiatives that they take, right, that affect the community, that affect the less well-off individuals, or even customers who may need support or whatever at that moment in time, those are the ones that I think are going to be remembered. So your local SMEs, your local community, your retail, your F&B, that kind of stuff. The software SaaS services that are offering free trials, etc. Let's be honest, this is serving them just as well, because they're obviously able to trial their service in a massive way, and they've always had that model of giving you a trial. So don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm saying they're not doing a good thing. They are, and it's great that Zoom is giving us extended 40-minute limits and so on.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of us, or at least most of us, are going to remember this when this is over. So I think it just depends what kind of activities you do. And there needs to be some sort of sacrifice made for it to be impactful.
It should be a continuous effort also. It's not just like, oh, okay, during this time, this is what we're going to do, and then bye.
Absolutely. Yes. Having said that, though, I also think that companies, though, should be smart about making sure that there is awareness of what it is that they're doing.
Mm.
And I know this can seem a little bit self-serving. I was having a chat at some point with somebody I know at Grab, and I was asking, like, why isn't Grab Malaysia, for example, reducing its commissions to F&B outlets and stuff like that? It recently has, I understood, but it's only recently done it. You know, the 30-35% commission they charge.
Right.
But I was like, okay, if you do that kind of stuff, why aren't you letting people know if you do it? Like, why isn't it available on the app and stuff? And yeah, okay, it's a fine line between saying, yeah, look at us, we're doing such great stuff for the community.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you don't do it, nobody knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame, right? Because then you lose the opportunity of creating that affinity and that bond and that level of trust with your consumers.
Yeah.
So I think brands need to not only do the good, but they need to be smart about also making sure that people know what they're doing. They don't need to show off, but they need to promote that.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it also brings on more merchants, right? Because then they know that they won't be, their sales won't be affected. Even though, like for example, F&B operators, they're afraid to go online maybe or to use Grab because they think that a big cut will be taken from what they earn. So, but with being so transparent, then they'll be actually attracting more merchants to come on board.
Sure, absolutely. And at least it's clear what they're doing for the community and how they're helping their different stakeholders, right? It's not just all about the delivery riders, right? It's also about, the restaurants and stuff. But that was just one example. But the message I just want to make is it's important to think about how you communicate your efforts as well. Don't just assume that people are going to pick up on it.
Yeah. And people know when it's fake or not.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And
I think
going next.
It's difficult for them to look at, like, if and when this is over and nobody has a finite timing to it, what are they going to do after, right? Do they continue the programs that they have? How can they pivot? I think it's still a very gray area for a lot of businesses right now.
Yeah.
We're happy that they're extending. I'm sure the decisions that they make need to have some business justification as well, because otherwise, it'll be tough. And it has to relate back to the core, whatever that it is that they're marketing or that they're selling, right? So I think what remains to be seen is which businesses that are able to pivot or reassess their marketing message after the MCO. And when things happen, when we go back to our new normal, that will be an interesting piece to see.
Okay. The next question would be, let's see. Okay, marketers will need to work closer with their colleagues, especially those who are making choices in terms of procurement and stuff. I know this might not be applicable to maybe smaller businesses, so we're just going to touch a little bit about the C-suites for the bigger businesses. How should the marketing team work closely with the finance side and the operations side to forecast, like what Julia said, you really don't know what's going to happen next, but how best to do this? What kind of outcomes do you think they should be prepared for, and how teams should be doing this efficiently? Do you have some advice for that, Roberto?
Given that I'm not in a massive organization at the moment, so I'm not having a million Zoom meetings with finance and everybody else. I wish I was sometimes, but I think it just boils down to communication, and it boils down to just what has changed. So if a company already had good systems and processes in place which allow for effective communication between departments so that they're not operating in silos and so on, I think it's a relatively easy thing for them to move that online, and it's just that the communication happens online, right? And I think there can also be big benefits in that things get streamlined and things should be faster, right? Because you have less of the wasting time forever on in meeting rooms and so on and so forth. I think the companies that will struggle are the ones that didn't have good communication systems in place. Or were very much operating in silos, because then that's where there's going to be a bigger chance of miscommunication, of different teams not knowing stuff and everything. But what I have seen with companies, with SMEs and medium-sized also kind of companies, is I think there's probably more interdepartmental communication, or across different teams within the company now than there probably was before. Because I noticed a lot of companies have now started having morning Zoom chats. Everybody gets together, everybody's sharing all that stuff, and they probably weren't doing this before.
You have no excuse to say, "Oh, I'm running out for a while." So
correct. Or I've got to go see a customer, I can't be there, or whatever.
Running to the living room.
Right. So I wouldn't be surprised if, in a lot of ways, there's actually more a dialogue and more communication going on between teams now than there was before. Yeah.
So the good thing.
I think so. But I think it's just, again, it depends on the kind of leadership that the company has, and whether the leadership is positive. Guys, okay, we're going to adapt to these changes, and this is how we're going to do it. Or it's leadership in kind of panic mode, etc., and just everybody figure out what you want to do, right?
So it's just about transparency as well.
Absolutely, and yes, there has to be more of that now, I think. But I think that's happening.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm not sure, because I can't speak for.
It depends on the organization.
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about that, we see a lot of companies already transitioning to remote working arrangements, and partners and colleagues are pitching remotely when it comes to agencies. So they recognize that an in-face sales call is unlikely to transpire. There's no more escaping out the door. So what challenges are you facing, and what solutions do you recommend, Julia?
I lost you there for a bit, Hanniz. Sorry. Can you repeat?
You lost me? I'll repeat the question. Okay, so you see a lot of companies transitioning to remote working arrangements, and agency partners are pitching remotely to companies. So recognizing that this face-to-face sales pitches are no longer possible for now, what are the challenges you're facing, and what are the solutions do you recommend for your team and as well for other agencies?
I'll tell you, Hanniz, remote working is really a big challenge. We used to do at the office, we used to do work from home for a couple of days for a couple of people, but you always have a base to come back to. Now that everyone is remote working, the discussion, being able to see each other face to face, or hash things out together with physical items, takes a little getting used to. We're getting there, but you don't have a dedicated space or dedicated time for the work stuff. It can get a little bit messy at the start, and pitches. We haven't done too many pitches online as yet, but presentations for sure, and it's difficult because some presentations can take 50, 60 slides, and nobody's going to sit the 60 slide deck online with you, right? The internet probably won't hold up like that. So some of the things that we did, and also I had some chats with industry PAs, and usually what we try to do is to condense it to no more than 20. Something short and sweet that is still succinct enough to be delivered online. Right, and it's tough because we used to rambling on and on and on, and then now we have to.
No, you have to concise and straight to the point.
Right, simple is actually harder to do. So, and we need to make it easy to follow because there's nothing physical. You can get lost really quickly, within the presentation. Another thing that we're trying to incorporate also is to work the presentation into a story format.
Okay.
A story framework. So it's forcing us to be very succinct as well. so that we have a proper beginning. We establish problem or the conflict, right? We make sure we have a clear enough solution, and then we wrap things up. So internally, we say, okay, let's do this in 20 slides, no more, right? And make sure we deliver it well. So you lose a lot of the physical cues, you lose a lot of the small talk and the interaction that you would normally get in a physical meeting.
Yeah.
But thankfully, in our day and age, the tools that we have, productivity tools that we have, make up a little bit for it. So I'm happy that actually, there are things like Zoom, there's stuff that we can establish beforehand. We can share screens and things like that. That makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So we prep clients as well. Right. We try to, because things can look a little bit messy as well. So we try to set the right environment. We use virtual backgrounds. We try to imitate the office setting so that, it gets people in the mood, like my virtual background. Yeah.
Like how you do this event.
And it's quite fun. I think,
You mean that is in your living room?
Sorry?
I thought that was your living room.
Of course. You see that guy over there? It's quite fun, We've done it like meetings on beaches and things like that. It's a laugh sometimes.
Yeah.
But a lot of video meetings have that as well. So it's good to. It makes for more of a conversation starter.
Okay. All right, and we'll go to our last question. So
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that very briefly. I think,
sure.
The good old saying, when there's a will, there's a way, right? And really with online, although it does take a little bit of adjustment, there's a way to do everything. And you start to realize in many ways it can also be a lot more efficient and a lot more focused, just because of the fact that, you've got people kind of sitting here, etc. There's less tendency to waste time because you kind of want to get to the points quicker usually. But also then screen sharing. Screen sharing is freaking amazing, right? Especially if you're using a right app and you master screen sharing, right? Because it really allows people to really focus on what it is you're seeing. In the good old days, sitting around a meeting room, somebody's presenting and, the slides right in front and everything. People are tuning off, etc. Sure, for all you know, they may be tuning off, at home, right, while they pretend to look at the screen.
Yeah, true.
But at least you're able to really interact. You're able to show things. You're able to show things live online. Virtual backgrounds. You can have videos playing on your virtual backgrounds, but not just 3-second videos. You can have full-on movies playing on your, right. It's amazing. So, and I was just reading an article today about Grab doing their Ramadan ad campaign, and they did that all virtually, right? So they had the talent. I think they're using Amy Search. So they had Amy Search in his house, and then the director in his house, clients in their houses, etc. And they did all that virtually. And sure, it take adjusting and stuff, but when there is a will, there really is a way.
And people are becoming very creative.
Correct. And I think even when things go back to normal, I think we may stick with a lot of these techniques and tools that people have been forced to pick up. And they may stay around. Some may stay around to allow things to be more efficient for certain times.
Exactly. I think it cuts back on a lot of having to rush to meetings, because right now you can have everything where you are. You become more well prepared because you don't want to waste people's time when you're online. Obviously, you shouldn't be unprepared when you meet them face to face, but somehow there's more pressure when people are waiting for you and you see their faces online. So it's just about getting used to new methods, like you said.
Yep.
But it's amazing how much more creative we are now, right? Finding because otherwise, had it been for the two of us to find a time to meet, probably couldn't have happened this Wednesday,
True.
Traffic and all that. Yeah.
5 o'clock will be a no-no for us. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move to our last question. So our marketing leaders must work externally to keep their brands and customer journeys as whole as possible. So what are your last 3 tips to plan for the next and beyond? Roberto, and then after that, Julia.
The 3 tips. Sorry, what's the 3 tips to plan for what?
For the future. I'll repeat that. Okay.
No, just three tips for what?
To plan for the next and the beyond.
The next and the beyond. Wow, what is this? Like what? Infinity Wars? What is this? I have no idea. For the next and beyond, I don't know. One, go see a soothsayer, fortune teller, and then don't know like no. I mean, I think this is super cliche, but the thing is, it's really just the companies that have the ability to be flexible, right? And I think this is what everyone's learning the hard way in many ways. Its flexibility is so important, and therefore you need, moving forward. I think it's tempting to just say, okay, well, I'm just going to wait until this whole MCO is over, and then I can get back to behaving exactly the way I used to do. I don't think things are going to get back to exactly the way they were very quickly. I think it will take a very long time. Even once people are out and stuff, there'll just be behaviors that people have just gotten used to that they're just not willing to go back to, right? Whether it's fear or not. So I think it's one of the things, 3 tips, I don't know, but the one key thing that I think is important is to make sure that you're thinking now, not just how do I ride out till the end of MCO, but how do I ensure my business is as flexible as possible? And that's, starting from not relying entirely on one revenue stream or one source of customer or one form of delivery. It's really making sure that you're not tied to any one particular thing, because I think those are the businesses that obviously have been hit the most.
Yeah.
So, restaurants that were already doing deliveries before, they were able to adapt quicker, right? I pity the poor restaurants who had never used any delivery, any online platform before, that then had to quickly figure it out, right? Because it just, the same for businesses that were not online, right? They're scrambling now to figure out how to do it. So it's just building in those capabilities now and making sure that you continue them and not go back into this relaxed mode afterwards of, oh, great, we're just back to usual.
Yeah.
But certainly the whole online thing, being, having an effective online presence, having a good story for your brand, being very consumer centric, all of those things are critical. Are critical to do, because more and more will inevitably go online. It already was. It's just being accelerated. So being able to operate the business, not just at a communication level, but at an operational level in an online, with a digitalized platform is going to be key.
Yeah, I think digitalizing your processes is super important, and not having to rely on somebody having to be in the office. So every department should be able to actually go online.
Yeah, having those contingencies in place and that flexibility in place.
Yeah. Julia, what would your tip be?
I agree with what Roberto said. Actually, things are not gonna go back to how it was. We'll be lucky if we get some semblance of normalcy, but all said and done, things are gonna be different. If we survive for a month and a bit without having to do with certain things, haircut notwithstanding, right? It could be a sign that you don't need it that much. So a lot of people could then be having new mindsets, new behavior shifts, new consumption habits. I posed this question the other day to a bunch of people. Imagine your business if this restricted movement, extended lockdown thing were to happen indefinitely, right? Not just for a month, not just for a month and a half, but what if this is how the world's going to be? Can you survive? Yeah. If this is your new normal, can your business survive? Right? If it cannot, what changes do you need to make? Right? Like if you're very retail dependent, and if the mall, and if there were no malls, which meant you had no shops anymore, no retail stores anymore, what are you going to do? Do you have an alternative way to make your products and services available?
Yeah.
Right. And so these are the hard questions that people have to consider now, and to see if if they need to make any changes to the business direction, if they need to digitalize both internally and externally, because putting something online requires a lot of back end work. It's for the long term, definitely. So and then also considering how people consume media now and how their lifestyles have changed, you need to then reassess your own marketing, whether that's still relevant. You can't go back to doing how it was before, all right? So a lot of things need to be planned and pivoted. So I would say the 3 things to do for the future would be, 1, to take a hard look at the business, and if it can survive, if the lockdown situation were to continue. If not, then something needs to change, something needs to pivot. Right. Secondly is to look at the products and services that you offer, if there are any other ways of offering it. And third is to reassess the state of your customers and what changes you need to do in order to fit into their new lifestyle.
Okay. So I also basically this is the mindset to be agile, to possibly change your business direction. Of course, that's one of the things that you also mentioned, right? Okay, so we're going to.
And also, sorry, Hanniz, just one last thing, but
sure.
Also, just to have the courage to make the hard decisions. I mean, it's easy to just say this, right? But you need to think of the survival of the business. It comes a little bit back to what I was saying. Companies are getting blasted if they let their employees go, or whatever it may be, or etc. Or you even look at what the AirAsia controversy, for example, right? Where everybody's always going to have a go at Tony Fernandez and say, "Oh, how could he do this?" Blah 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 blah.
Richard Branson, even.
Yeah. Everybody, right? They're always going to have a go at these kind of billionaires. Why don't they just take their money, as if their money is their billions, just cash in their house?
It's just value.
But the thing is, so what do you do in that situation if you're Tony Fernandez, for example? Do you just kind of do whatever you can for your staff right now, even if it means the business is probably going to fold? Or do you do whatever it takes and also piss off a lot of consumers in the short term, right? Even if it means that a company that has become synonymous with travel in the region will probably end up collapsing. And then when we're all better and all ready to travel, what are our options? Where do we go?
No more company to go to.
Correct. So it's really also having the courage to make the hard decisions, which may not be popular, because you can't please everyone. And unfortunately, consumers sitting at home on their couches, feeling miserable, feeling upset, it's very easy for them to just say, "Oh, everybody should be doing this, sacrificing everything, etc." But then the businesses are all going to collapse.
Yeah.
So some decisions just have to be unpopular if you want a business to survive, if you want an industry to survive. But yeah, it's not easy. So anyway, just have a realistic kind of thing that not everything will be a popular decision,
and not be in denial that this is going to be okay.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is to just be upfront and honest.
Yeah.
And personally, I think the way the message was delivered by AirAsia, at least from what I can see on the outside, was good. I mean, you're just being upfront and you're saying, "Hey, we can't give all these refunds right now, because if we do, we've got no more cash."
Yeah.
Right? How the hell do we operate, right? If everybody expects a refund now. So if you want us to survive, if you want to be able to travel in the future, this is what we can do. So I thought they were relatively transparent. Sure, could they be more flexible in terms of not having a 1-year limit, etc.? That, yes, I think that's just the old AirAsia 1-year limit, and then everything goes.
Limited time. Yeah.
But I think as long as you're transparent and you're open, be honest about the situation, and don't try to please everyone, because that way, chances are your business is going to go down the drain.
True. All right, so I think we talked more than just marketing and branding. We're talking more about about business survival even, and I think that's and you just have to prepare yourself. Branding is one part of your business which is important to keep in the minds of people, so that when things do get better, they do come to you. But of course, yes, you have to be realistic and just prepare for a plan B in case you need to pivot and change your business model. So thank you so much, Julia and Roberto. We're going to prepare dinner tonight, and some of us are going to make maybe pasta. I don't know.
Of course. Yes, that's all I took.
So thanks.
Sorry?
Thanks again. But you want to say something, Julia?
Send
them over?
Send me photos of your dinner.
Of course, photos and videos available online. Yes. That's how I'm pivoting my business. None of this marketing stuff is working, so I'm just going to do cooking videos and hope for the best.
Just try TikTok. It should work.
Correct.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Hanniz. Bye. Bye, Julia. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.